All right, so a little bit of behind the scenes on this one. There have been a few books in the 8 months or so that I've been doing this where I finish the book and I actually don't do a review on it because I just didn't enjoy the book. Because the fact of the matter is, and this might seem very contrary to a lot of how I act, but it is, to me, a lot more challenging to talk about why you dislike something than why you like something. I actually think in terms of analysis, actually coming up with reasons why you like something is more challenging than coming up with reasons why you dislike something. But when it comes to talking about something and the when you put your opinion particularly out there in public, as I'm doing on this channel, even though the channel is named One Cheek Books, I try to be still very cognizant of the way I talk when it comes to negativity, because for the most part I want to promote positive reading, and I also want to promote a certain honesty with my reading experience that kind of goes against the sort of performative nature of reading, as I've talked about in my blinding review, which is why I'm doing this review in the first place, because I said earlier, it is more challenging to actually come up with reasons that you like something versus, and by coming up with reasons that you like something, I mean in both cases it's easy to say like, well, I enjoyed the characters or I enjoyed the prose or something, but usually, much like with criticisms, that's not really getting at the heart of the matter. That's not getting at the heart of why it resonated with you. I just came off of The Stolen Bicycle, where I gushed about the book immensely, and even there I feel like I'm really not 100% sure what about the book it is that stuck with me. And to an outsider it will probably seem like it's the connection with Wind Up Bird Chronicle, but that's really not the case. It's more to do with, I think, the way the book managed to balance a sort of sentimentality with the history, with the realism, and the generational conflict. Like, all these themes and the balance of it, I think, really came together to make something special. But even now I find myself constantly thinking, constantly analyzing, trying to understand just why that book spoke to me so much, as much as it did. But while it is more challenging to, I think, find positive things when you're discussing something in public, I think you have to be more discerning, more critical, more analytical with your criticisms than your praises. And I think that's just really doing your due diligence, even if it does regularly create this situation. And this is the situation where I feel in some of my videos I come across more negative than I really feel. But it's because I feel like if I'm going to criticize something, then I owe it to the thing that I am criticizing to be detailed, to try to give more than just an I didn't like it, I thought it was boring, or these really surface level, I thought it was shallow, I thought it was pretentious, these kind of surface level analyses, because you're being critical, because you're being negative. And while, like I said, while this does lead to a situation where you end up in a review, at least for me, and I think a lot of people experience this too, you end up devoting a lot more of your word count, or in this case, the time, to the negatives than the positives. It doesn't mean that the negatives outweigh the positives. It's just that there's more pressure to really go back and justify your negatives. And given this long-winded preamble, I really don't need to explain my feelings in a single word on The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida, but I do bring it up because I want to put this review into context. The reason that I usually start my reviews with context is, as I've said in the past many times, to give the context of how I'm approaching the book, because that can change it, or will define in many cases what people get from a book. And when I read this book, I actually ended up reading pretty much the whole book, minus the first 40 pages, in one day. I came home from work, I started reading. I saw that I wasn't really going to click with this book, and there's two ways that you'll read through a book really, really quickly, either because you're absolutely enjoying it, or in this case, because you just want to get it the fuck over with so you can move on to something you do enjoy a lot more. But that left me with the question of, do I even want to make a review for this book, given that it's going to be so difficult to find something, to talk about it in a way that will be gratifying for me. And the reason that I'm doing it is because, like I said, I want to be transparent with my reading, with my struggles with reading. That was my whole video on blinding and maximalism was things that don't gel well with me. But those are books that I see their value. I think they're interesting and have a lot of neat things to say. It's just not for me. And I've talked about that phrase before and broken it down quite a bit. This is a book where it goes beyond "it's not just for me" into the territory of God. I've struggled to even bring myself to say it, but I really okay. I'll phrase this because I won't even go as far as to say the full thing. I just think that there's so many better books that do what this book is trying to do that it just feels like there's so many better things you could be doing with your time than reading this book. So how did I come to this book is usually where I start my reviews. So how did I come to this book? A long time ago, when I was first getting into reading Asian fiction, Japanese fiction, I was just looking for anything that had the Japanese fiction label. And Rainbirds by the same author, Clarissa Goenawan or Goenawan. I'm sorry, I'm always horrible with names. It is not it is not any insult against the it's not any intended insult against the author. Massive apologies, but Rainbirds was her big book at the time, and this was when I was like first kind of getting into Murakami, and a lot of people said it was like Murakami, so I got it. I was eager to read it. I read it, and to me it was Murakami light. I enjoyed some aspects of it, but I didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much. But then I wanted to see where she went from that, but I ended up skipping this book, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida. And then I came to Japan, and I've been, reading a lot more. And at one point, I just wanted to return to Rainbirds and see how I felt about it then. But in the meantime, things were... this was back when... oh, God, what was it called? Not Book Hub, not Bookshop. Book Depot. They did free deliveries to Japan, so I was getting a lot of my books there. And when they were shutting down, I picked up a ton of stuff, including things that ordinarily I wouldn't be super interested in. That might even be where I ended up getting The Man with the Compound Eyes. And I decided to get her other two books at the time, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida and Water Song. And because, like I said, I remember being kind of middling on it, but, hoping that she would improve as an author. And So I went back and reread Rainbirds a few years ago, and I have to say that even by the standards of Murakami Light, I found it disappointing. I don't remember my exact feelings on it, but I just remember walking away from it thinking that it wasn't a book that I would ever read again. And again, it comes back to it's the kind of disappointing, like I use the word disappointing explicitly because it didn't make me angry, it didn't make me upset, it wasn't a bad book, it was just middle of the road. It was just unoffensive. It was kind of in many ways the worst thing that art can be. It was just kind of boring and didn't leave an impression, which given the massive or at least relatively massive reception towards it, most of it positive, I'm probably not in the super minority, but a lot of people noted it as being basically very, very heavily influenced by Murakami. But considering Murakami himself started out doing basically Vonnegut fan fiction, there's every chance that she could have improved. And so I was actually, especially after The Stolen Bicycle, eager to go into this book and see if she had moved away from Murakami and developed a bit of her own style, and immediately reading the book, the parallels to Norwegian Wood will strike you in the face, in the sense that it takes place mostly it's college students, and there's a romance, and one of the characters commits suicide, and a lot of the emotional crux of the book is trying to move on with that suicide, which from the back it mentions the Japan Times. It's a quote: if her debut novel brings Murakami to mind, her second, with its winsome tones, harkens to early Banana Yoshimoto. But well, I kind of see that, especially given the transgendered character, the transgendered older sister, the transgendered caregiver, which calls back kind of somewhat to Kitchen. I think that really, by making the comparisons to Murakami, by making the comparisons to Yoshimoto, and the fact that both of these books, and I guess her third book too, despite the fact that she's Indonesian born, but Singaporean, her books are set in Japan, and this is, as I'm about to move into criticisms, this is exactly what I mean where I say my thoughts are not yet refined. I'm going to say things. I'm going to probably hit at something related to the problem that might not be the problem, but it is necessary for me to talk my way through these things, to phrase it in the conversations. And part of the point of these videos was also to help me refine my thoughts and my analyses and my feelings towards books. So going forward, keep that in mind. These are all extremely raw, unrefined thoughts that may be hinting at the issue or not phrasing it well. But and one of the ways that I can really say that is her books use Japanese names in the name of Japanese places, but they do not read to me like Japanese novels at all, which it's not like a big deal, but it just seems like a missed opportunity, especially since, as I've said numerous times, or as I said in the Stolen Bicycle review, there's a lot of translated Japanese fiction available to people. And one of the things I really like with reading world fiction is the opportunity to get to explore so many other cultures. So, while I'm absolutely not saying that, like, an American author can't write a story set in Japan, or like David Mitchell, I think some of his first books were set in Japan, or she can't write her book set in Japan, I can read Japanese stories written by Japanese storytellers that have specifically, there's just something, I don't know if it's in the word use, I don't know if it's in the way that they, the things that they choose to describe versus the things that they don't describe. There's just something about it to me that reads very much like it's somebody writing about Japan rather than a Japanese story. This may just stick out to me more as I've read a lot of Japanese fiction. Could just be in my head. I have no idea. But it's disappointing in the sense that I would like to see more of her own culture come to these books. But even beyond just the fact that it feels like it's imitating Japanese fiction rather than being Japanese fiction, the comparisons to Murakami and Banana Yoshimoto really set me up for finding her work extremely shallow by comparison. And there's that word, that challenging word. It's a very, very umbrella word, and I am going to try to dive into a little bit of why that is, and that's going to be the crux of most of this, because if you can't tell by now, I would not recommend this book, unfortunately. I feel really, really bad saying that, but I wouldn't. But in terms of the pros, I guess pros and cons, I do want to give a few quick pros. Credit where credit is due. It's very easy to read. I always say easy to read as a pro, but really, I mean, like I said, I sat down and read it in a day. My eyes weren't getting caught up on passages. Nothing felt like it was trying to awe you. Nothing felt like it was overly verbose or overly redundant or whatever. Although I will say that one of the cons with her characters, and already I'm moving into cons, but okay, so sticking with pros, easy to read, God, genuinely, the silence is damning. Because like the characters aren't awful, but they're very like one-dimensional. They don't have a lot of depth to them. And I guess I might as well just springboard right off of that into the criticisms. So the characters, and here's the broad, oversimplified term that's probably going to raise a lot of hairs, raise a lot of hackles. I feel that the characters are pretty one-dimensional. I don't really quite understand what it is that makes them tick. And this is something where, looking back at like a Murakami book or a Banana Yoshimoto book, I feel like in both cases, you get such a deep understanding of the characters and what it is that motivates them, what it is that drives them. Whereas in the sense of this particular book, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida, all the characters, from the main character to his sister to the woman herself, Miwako Sumida, I never felt like I quite saw them as multidimensional, as real people, as fully realized people. I never quite understood what it was that made them tick. Like, for example, okay, I understand that the main character was an orphan, and he wants to grow up, and he wants to get a corporate job in order to make his sister happy. And, well, not in order to make his sister happy, but in order to support his sister, who has supported him from when he was an orphan. I get that. And I get that in his free time, he likes to read. But he just doesn't feel like a real person. Like, okay, that's a general thing, but what particular job is he looking at? What is he majoring in? Like, what does he study? And the reason I'm focusing so much on, okay, and like he also helps out his sister with her artwork, but is he really into art? And the reason that I'm picking out on these sort of specific things, because, you can have a character and not mention their major or what they're studying in. I don't think they ever did in Norwegian Wood. But these are the things that are brought up about his character, and nothing else is really brought up about him aside from he's tall and good looking. And he's, most of the things that we understand about characters, and this is slightly getting to another point, is told to us rather than that we're shown. But, like, it's said that he likes to read, but why? I want to compare because, like, he and Miwako Sumida, the main character in Miwako Sumida, end up meeting and connecting over their love of books, and they spend a lot of time at a bookshop together and reading together. And I'm reminded of Sumide and Kei from Sputnik Sweetheart. But with Sputnik Sweetheart, I felt like I really understood why Kei was such a reader and why Sumide was such a reader. And in both cases, it was because they felt isolated and disconnected from the people around them. In Kei's case, because he just really wasn't interested in the world around him that much, as most Murakami's protagonists are. As long as he's left alone with his books, he's fine. But in Sumide's case, it was because she really needed a mother or a close relationship with either her mother or father, and absent that, while her stepmother did try to love her, she was really retreating into books because she wasn't finding the connection with her family, with the people who should be closest to her, so she read. So, in that sense, I really had a core understanding of why it is that these two characters go back into, are such bookworms, why they read so much. Even in Norwegian Wood, I can't remember his name because it's been a while, but the character behind the famous line, if you only read what other people are reading, you only think what other people are thinking. His reading is a way for him to kind of flex his knowledge, flex his experience, to be sort of honestly better than other people. It's a very egotistical driven thing. It's not that he genuinely enjoys reading and enjoys exposing himself to new thoughts. It's that by doing so, he feels himself to be superior to other people. And these like subtle nuances in character that really lend a character in a story a new dimension, that give meaning behind their actions and make you understand what they're doing, and makes it feel like their actions are stemming from a real place and not just being dictated by the story. That is what is missing from Clarissa. As I God, using a first name feels so weird, but mangling the last name feels even more rude. But this is what feels like is missing from her writing so much. The fact that the main character reads is just a detail. The fact that Sumida reads romance novels is an interesting detail, but we never really understand why. Especially given what happens to her, the sexual assault. You would think that she would be driven away from that particular type of story, and yet she's attracted to it. And it's not that this can't happen, but the thing that makes it so boggling, or the problem with not having that sort of detail behind it, is that it's just a detail. It doesn't lend to the character beyond being like a sort of trivia fact. It doesn't build to their fundamental personality of who they are. It's just a little quirk. And particularly what the romance thing also brings up about the characters is the way in which the characters never interrogate themselves or their own actions. And I think that that's another huge difference, especially choosing Murakami and Yoshimoto. Because if there's one thing that these two are really about, and this is something like Nosgard really does, a lot of authors that I really enjoy like to interrogate their characters' thoughts and emotions. And there are other good writers that interrogate other aspects of their characters, whether it's interrogating society, whether it's interrogating class, whether it's interrogating family structure. Like Jonathan Franzen is really good at interrogating the middle-class white American family from particularly like the 2000s. So like it's not like it has to be necessarily an interrogation of the characters, but it's obvious that this is the type of story that she's going for, that Clarissa is going for, but that because the characters have these traits, but these characters never really examine themselves. Even the one transsexual character, when you do get her perspective, she ends up being nowhere near as complicated a character as the mother in Kitchen. Despite the mother in Kitchen, Kitchen itself, despite being not even 100-page, it's just a novella, she has so much more to her than the transgendered character in this story, because we never really quite interrogate anything about her own feelings, other than she feels like she was born in the wrong body type. Like, she examines a thing that happened to her back in high school, a bullying incident, which is really bizarre because it has nothing to do with what we saw before the story. It goes almost nowhere, and then it just kind of gets wrapped up in the final third of the book. It's just this thing that kind of happens out of nowhere. And what this really should be is a time that helps us build this character, that helps us understand this character within the context of the story. But instead, it's just a story about bullying that unto itself I have issues with. So, like, one of the things I find particularly fascinating is that she goes to the the high school reunion dressed as a woman, and spends a lot of time dressing as a woman. And this is a high school reunion. This is a place, when she was in high school, she was still identifying male. So when she goes here as a female, she the only reason that she goes to this reunion is to confront one of the bullies and demand an explanation for why she was bullied. And yet she chooses to do it as a woman, but we never get her interior thoughts as to why in the fuck would you do that if you're uncomfortable about how people react when they find out you're a man or something, as this character has been demonstrated in the past to be. Because you're intentionally putting yourself in a situation where people are going to recognize that you were once identified as male and are going to almost certainly call you out on it. And yet you draw attention to that. And yet in doing so, it's a direct contradiction with how you've acted at every other point in the story. So what's going on here? What is the decision? Again, it's not that there's not some way you could have arrived at this conclusion at this particular sequence of events, but I have no idea because the character never really interrogates their own thoughts or feelings. And as an outsider, I never really see enough of the character's behavior to get a sense for why they would behave this way. If anything, everything that I've seen about this character suggests that they would do the exact opposite of this. So, why? Just, it makes it difficult to feel like these characters are real characters. And the last twist on this is the fact, and I started to mention this before, we're always told traits about characters more so than we're seeing them. So, for instance, Sumida herself. Okay, let me back up a second now that I actually say that. We're constantly told things about characters that then when what we're shown completely contradicts all of that. So, like, Sumida herself is described repeatedly, and by repeatedly, as a girl who doesn't give a damn and who speaks her feelings out loud. And yet, this whole entire fucking story centers around the fact that she does literally the opposite of that. That she keeps secrets from everybody, that she's not open with anybody, and it is repeatedly shown that anytime the main character tries to get close to her, she dodges the issue and blows him off. Like, it is the exact opposite of what we're told. So we have to keep being told repeatedly by characters, oh, why would she do that? She was always so direct. Oh, my sister liked her directness. We have to be told this over and over and over because it's at odds with everything that we're shown. We're told that the main character is extremely stubborn, but he's never done anything that's been overly stubborn. Like, yeah, I guess he goes off to this place for like 2 months, this remote village in the middle of nowhere, to find out where the girl that he really, really liked and was really, really close with hung herself. And he spends 2 months there. But is that stubbornness, or is that just how he grieves? And I already mentioned what we're shown about the way the sister reacts to her gender issue, or particularly how people address her gender complexities. And yet then we're shown her doing something that's completely not in keeping with that whatsoever. So it's just, what is going on with this book? It is such a conflicting mess of character traits and whatnot. And it's a book, when I mentioned in The Stolen Bicycle how much I appreciated the book not relying exclusively on pathos, on emotion, to carry the book. This is a book where I feel like it is relying completely on pathos, completely on these characters and their emotions, and for you to buy into them. And the fact that there's really, when you interrogate beyond that, nothing there, nothing to find with any of them, because again, they're contradictory, they're not super well developed, they don't interrogate themselves, and from the start, we don't have enough information to really fully understand why they are the way they are. And that's, the characters. The plot itself, it's kind of an interrogation of, not even an interrogation, a look at this woman and how she kind of touched these people. But again, the main character of the story has his first part, and then he's present in the second part and a little bit in the third part, but the second part is dedicated to her friend, and the third part is dedicated to the main character's sister. And it's an okay way of doing things, but the problem is, again, the characters don't have enough screen time on their own, and then you add to that the fact that it's jumping between past and future, and it's also repeating a lot of things, and it doesn't help that it's so blunt that how do I say this? How the fuck do I say this in a diplomatic way? I'm actually going to pause the video and think about this. Okay, so after thinking about it for a second, I'm just going to describe how the book handles this. There is a part when you're following the friend's story where she describes a zine that it shows it's a secret. It's called The Secret Diary, and people submit diary entries, and the popular ones move to the top. And obviously it's all anonymous, so it's anonymous diary entries, and then people vote on the ones that they enjoy, and the ones that they get voted on get moved more to the front of the magazine, which is something that does happen in a lot of Japanese, like if you know anything about manga, and how that gets published in magazines in Japan. So it's very believable in that sense that this type of thing exists, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a real thing. But so the friend, Chie is her name, really creates this false magazine, or creates this false diary based off of a high school girl who's super popular, and her popular antics end up moving to the top spot of the magazine. But then at one point, a new entry pops up, and it's called like Dirty Tales. And the first entry is about a girl who describes a little man coming into her room at night, entering inside her privates and dancing while she's unable to move and unable to react. And right from the start, you should be able to guess where this is going. And every single entry after that gets more and more about the little man coming in, beating her, harassing her, and telling her that there's no escape, all the while getting into her privates and dancing around. And this is so obviously a cry for help. Somebody who is openly expressing that they are being sexually assaulted, that any editor who would run this, any editor who would not immediately call the police, would not immediately look into this, much less for it to go to publication, for it to continue to run, for it to become popular, to be read by as many people as it's been read, and to have none of them piece together what is going on here, so defies not only logic, but the fact that, like, do you not think that we as readers would not immediately carton on to what's going on here? Like, seriously? Like, and it just bugs me, because this is supposed to be her big secret. The big thing that she sort of kept hidden is that she has been sexually assaulted by her stepbrother. And it's just so obvious that this is the case. And the fact that everybody, like I said, like everybody around her doesn't notice, or the fact that the story treats us as readers like we shouldn't have fucking noticed this, that we shouldn't have fucking called this ages ago. You know, even before the story came in, this was obvious. And it's just a case of the story being written so obviously. God, okay, this is where I start getting uncharitable. But I genuinely feel like you would have to be pretty much ignoring any kind of subtext to not see that this is where the story is going. So the fact that the story continues along this route as though it's anything other than obvious, to me, is frustrating, especially given the weight of what is going on here. It comes across as poorly handled, and like this is where I don't want to put words or level accusations against the writer or anything. So just suffice to say, I don't like how that was handled, and I don't like the fact that the book is so blunt with everything, while at the same time being so contradictory with, like I said, the stuff that it tells us versus the stuff that it shows us. And I'm just going to stop here, because I think I have already feeling a bit more solidified in the reasons that I did not care for this book. And I I do want to give her third book a try, just in the hopes that it gets better than this. Because, like I said, Murakami started out with Vonnegut. God, I can't even think anymore. Fuck it, I'm done.